Air taxis, will they exist, will they not? My own thoughts and opinions on why air taxis will not be a viable option. So if you study emerging technologies, we've seen a lot around full self-driving, autopilot, cars with capabilities of driving themselves without the need for a human driver, as well as drones starting to become more utilitarian and just becoming ever larger and smaller, cheaper. With declining cost curves, the cost of what it is, especially in battery technology as well, the cost to actually produce and manufacture drones, flying objects, electric cars is coming down massively. But I've got four main issues with the concept of air taxis, along with another reason why I think they won't. So here's 5 reasons why I don't think air taxis will be a thing of the future. This will be really embarrassing if you save this video for 2050 and we're all flying around in air taxis. Oh, maybe they will be then. Let's jump in. Number 1 is debris. The concept, when you've got an air taxi up in the skies, I'm assuming this will be with autopilot software, so it will be on a route where it's not being driven by a human. However, you will still have humans as passengers in the drone, the robo-taxi. So one issue I do see is debris in the sense of just people throwing stuff over the sides, or if you have any kind of damage, collision hopefully not, but if you've got stuff going through the skies, is there the potential for collisions to happen? And therefore, if it does, the potential risk factor there of the idea that this debris could be falling from the skies onto the ground, when you consider what is the ground full of? A lot of people, houses, homes, parks, children, babies, animals. There's so much to risk there. The idea of these air taxis flying around in space above us. So, like, overcoming that issue would be that you would have air taxis, but they would be for long journeys only. So you wouldn't like pop down to the shops in your air taxi. You would pop over to your mate's house. However, if you were going from like London to Manchester, you may be able to take an air taxi in the sense of you'd go like the motorway, where you wouldn't use the motorway strictly to go to like pop into town, whereas you'd use the motorway to go from London to Manchester. So that's something where to overcome that issue would be the case of air taxis would exist, but only in the sense of going from long distances. So then you could get out of towns, and therefore I would see it being something where you wouldn't just like with an Uber or with a robo-taxi, you wouldn't just call up or jump on your phone to get one from outside your house. You would have to go into a specified zone where you could then take an air taxi, much like the train. So you'd get like a robo-taxi down to the air taxi station to then get an air taxi to your destination, and then robo-taxi to your next destination. Reason number 2, experience, and that I would say works with noise. And this is something I don't have much of an understanding of the technology, but you have got the issue of so much noise, and that's not just as a passenger, but as civilians, pedestrians around, which coincides with my previous point of if you are looking at journeys going from like being picked up from outside your house, the idea of an air taxi just like lowering down, especially like in unsociable hours, you couldn't have this like huge hovering thing coming down just like and taking off again. Imagine that, like if someone works night shifts and they get an air taxi to work every shift, just it'd drive you insane, and I think it'd drive everyone else insane. So that's why I don't see it being viable, unless it is a way, because you could definitely do a lot, especially with like glass technology, soundproofing. You can do a lot to increase the quality of the experience for the passenger, like getting in the vehicle once it's strapped in, you're sealed up. I can imagine the experience will become a lot better there. But yeah, from the outside, I can't imagine it would be. So again, solving this issue would be something where you would do it for long journeys, and so you would get your robo-taxi to take you quietly to the station where you jump in your air taxi and then take your air taxi where noise isn't such an issue. The same way with train stations, although there are people that live above them, so who knows, maybe people can deal with it. Reason number 3, this is convenience. Yes, it seems hugely convenient that we'd be able to take a air taxi from London to Manchester and be able to get there. When we look at it now, what is it, like a 6-hour drive or something ridiculous, depending on traffic. And so while it seems massively convenient, the idea you can just like call up an air taxi, pick you up, take you straight there in a matter of like an hour or two, does seem massively convenient. However, I think with the barriers you will have in place, the inconvenience of having to get a robotaxi. This is like such first world problems, but the reality of having to get a robotaxi from your home to the station, to jump on the air taxi, to then get to the next station, so if you are going from like London to Manchester, and then when you're in Manchester, getting on another robotaxi to then take you to your hotel, your friends, family, whatever it is you're going to, when you could just jump in a robotaxi and go straight there. Does seem like it's a lot, especially if you've like all your bags, your luggage, just to move from vehicle to vehicle to vehicle, when you could just hop in. Especially tying this in with my ideas of how robo-taxis in the future will evolve, so that we'll have different options based on what we're doing. If we are doing something that is a 6-hour journey and you're able to just hop into a car that's almost like a bed on wheels, it's like, well, why would I bother? I can just sleep while I'm journeying there. I can set it up on my phone so that I can take an 8-hour slow ride, so that I can just sleep on my journey, or if I want to get there quick. Because this is something as well that I see with the speed limit being eradicated, in the sense of, if humans are no longer driving, why do we need speed limits if it's artificial intelligence technology that is able to take us safely without speed, given that we can all, it's technology that works with no emotion and it just follows its set of rules. Why do we need speed limits? So you could potentially set the settings to say, I need to get to Manchester in an hour, drive me at 200 miles an hour. If you've seen the film I, Robot, you see this kind of thing where cars are travelling around at ridiculous speeds. Well, I say ridiculous relative to now, where we think the idea of someone flying along at 110 miles an hour is bonkers. Whereas I can see a future where there is no need for that speed limit, so cars will be able to go along at 200 plus miles an hour, if we're capable of them achieving it, with the battery draining at a ridiculous rate, obviously. And that would have to fall in with auto charging as well, the idea that it would charge on its own without the need for a human coming out and putting it in. But again, if you've got Tesla bots operating, then you wouldn't really need that. And the convenience ties in as well as my previous point around, if you were to be picked up from any destination, you've then got the inconvenience of all those around you. Are you being an inconvenience if you're getting picked up for a ride to the airport to go on holiday? Then you're going to be pissing off all your neighbours and letting them know you're going away on holiday because you're taking an air taxi to the airport. So there is a lot of inconveniences with it. You may agree, you may not agree, and I think it will have its uses, and it will be, like, in terms of thinking how do we solve this problem, I think in extreme cases it would be handy, and you'll probably start to see maybe examples of where air taxis are able to do journeys from country to country, so it may not be necessary, so it starts to become this thing in between your plane journey and your car ride. So somewhere like England to France, we can get the Eurostar, we can fly there, but if you could get an air taxi that's powered by renewable energy, and it's quite quick, it's efficient, it's quieter than the plane, it's more convenient in terms of its takeoff, its landing, then on smaller journeys we could start to see that is what an air taxi kind of component is to society in the future. And my last point ties into sort of all of them as a whole, and that's noise. Just the noise that will be associated with them, because as I said, inside the cab you could do a lot to insulate so that you don't, as a passenger, you don't experience the noise. But the issue you are going to have is that those externally are just going to be faced with this, which I kind of did two at once there when I was talking about the experience. But yeah, noise is one. And to tie it back into the experience, I'm really getting jumbled here, but hopefully it's still useful to you. But in tying in back with the experience, it's just, what is that ride going to be like if you have got adverse weather conditions, a lot of rain, winds? Is it going to prohibit rides from going ahead, or is it just going to be a case if you can, but you're going to be bouncing around and shaking and going crazy on your way to Manchester from London? I already did experience the noise the wrong way around, didn't I? Anyway, so yeah, there is a lot of challenges for it, and it's something I think would be really cool to have. But my fifth point of a reason, again, why I think it won't happen is because of the volume of traffic you can have above is so limited when you look at what could be achieved below. And this is where we tie into the wonderful Boring Company, another one of Elon's creations, well, investor in, co-founder. But yeah, with the Boring Company, the concept of tunnelling from city to city in order to take traffic from off the road and take it down below. And this, the way that within cities we will get tubes and undergrounds from destination to destination, and the Boring Company is just there to fill in the gap between when you are doing that London to Manchester trip, rather than sitting on a motorway and getting stuck in traffic. You can just take a tunnel that will go straight there in a matter of an hour, a couple of hours or so that you won't need to sit in traffic, and you can ride along underground with a nice little light show. It's a hard one to dive into because you have got to think about a lot of different changing factors within the future when we look decades into the future. Yes, I'm talking about air taxis, which seem really convenient now, but if we have got full self-driving cars and we are no longer driving as humans, it doesn't really matter if a journey is going to take this amount of time or that amount of time because we can work it around the convenience of our lifestyle. In addition to that, if we're no longer driving, it's all around robo-taxis and software that drives for us. I think that'll do a lot to take vehicles off the road, or not necessarily take, but it'll do a lot to manage traffic because we can monitor that and start to plan our routes around how the traffic is managed. And with that, I think it would do a lot to free people's time. So it's not like every single child on earth has to be at school for 9 a.m. and every single person in the office has to be at work for 9 a.m. So therefore, between the hours of like 5 and 9, it's just ridiculous wherever you try to go. Like for me locally, if I was to try and drive into London on a weekday, I just wouldn't want to do it. I couldn't do it every day. I'd go insane. The idea of having to drive for like something that is a half-hour journey being 2 hours there and then back again because of rush hour stuck in traffic. So I think, I don't want to put a down on anyone that is developing air taxi technology, but I think the introduction of full self-driving will do a lot to eradicate the need and the desire for air taxis, especially when coincided with the introduction of tunnels between cities for long commutes. I might be wrong. I mean, it would be exciting, the concept of having air taxis in the future, and I'd definitely be jumping in line to grab a ticket and experience it. Although I do see it being a challenge, and perhaps I'm wrong, especially around like the experience, if anyone works in the industry, or the convenience of it, the noise or debris to prevent these things. And I think they're all issues that can be dealt with and can be overcome. Like, I'm not saying that it won't work at all, but I think there will be a lot of limitations. And as I said, when you look at the other options that are available that just seem so much easier, I think it will be a challenge. But that said, I will finish a note on saying that I think going from longer journeys from like one end of the country to the other, especially somewhere like America where you have got such a vast amount of space, so many different states, I think going from like state to state, and this applies to any larger country, Australia, Russia, to go from like place to place or across continents where you've got landmass, I think will be massive. But let me know, what do you think? Drop in a comment below to let me know your thoughts. If you like the video, please hit the like button and subscribe to get a load more great videos in the future.